Most people think the Coachella Valley is a place you come to escape. Music festivals, luxury homes, palm trees glowing under the desert sun. But once the sun goes down, the valley changes. The roads stretch longer, the silence gets heavier, and the desert starts to feel like it's watching you. What most visitors don't know is that the Coachella Valley has one of the highest numbers of unresolved missing person cases in Southern California. Cases that were investigated, cases that made the news for a moment and then quietly disappeared. Not because they were solved, but because the answers never came. Families here don't talk about these cases loudly. They talk about them in fragments, in memories, in the pauses between sentences. Because when someone vanishes in the desert, there isn't always a body. There isn't always evidence. Sometimes there isn't even a direction to look. And that's what makes these mysteries so unsettling. One of the earliest patterns investigators noticed was how ordinary the days were before people disappeared. No arguments, no plans to leave, no reason to believe anything was wrong. Just a normal day, followed by nothing. Take the case of a young man who was last seen driving toward the outskirts of the valley late at night. Friends said he was calm, not upset, not scared. His car was later found parked along a remote stretch of road near the desert edge. Doors unlocked, wallet inside, phone dead. Search teams covered miles of open land. They searched washes, rocky hills, abandoned structures. There was no sign of him, no footprints, no blood, no clothing. The desert didn't give anything back, and cases like this aren't rare here. Over the years, hikers have vanished from well-marked trails. Drivers have disappeared during short trips. People have gone missing less than a mile from their homes. The common factor isn't crime scenes or suspects, it's isolation. The desert doesn't need to hide what it takes, it simply absorbs it. Another group of cases that still raise questions involves deaths that were ruled accidental, even when families say the explanations don't make sense. One woman was found deceased near a remote area, her car miles away from where her body was discovered. Investigators said she likely became disoriented. Her family pointed out the weather that night wasn't extreme. She knew the area. She had lived there for years. Why would she walk that far? Why leave the car? Those questions were never answered. The case was closed. But for the people who loved her, it never ended. Then there are the disappearances that happen almost invisibly. A person checks into a motel. They're seen once, maybe twice. Then they're never seen again. No checkout record, no luggage recovered, no confirmed sighting afterward. The desert around the valley is vast enough that even a thorough search can miss something or someone forever. And this leads to the most disturbing reality of all. Some cases don't stay unsolved because of lack of effort. They stay unsolved because there's nothing left to investigate. One former search volunteer described it like this: "You don't realize how empty the desert really is until you're looking for someone who's gone, and that emptiness becomes part of the mystery." But among all these cases, there is one type of disappearance that continues to haunt local law enforcement more than others: people who vanish after nightfall. One case in particular has never left investigators' minds. A person left a small gathering late in the evening saying they were heading home. The drive should have taken less than 20 minutes. They never arrived. Their phone last connected to a cell tower near the desert perimeter. After that, there was no activity. Search teams returned to that area again and again. Different seasons, different conditions. Nothing was ever found. Years later, someone came forward with a detail that complicated everything. They claimed to have seen lights moving slowly in the distance that same night. Not headlights, not buildings. Lights that didn't behave normally. Police documented the statement, but without physical evidence, it led nowhere. And this is where many Coachella Valley cases stall. Too many unanswered questions, not enough proof. The desert doesn't lie, but it doesn't speak either. Another unsettling detail is how time seems to work differently in these cases. Days turn into months, months turn into years, witnesses move away. Memories fade, details blur, what once felt urgent becomes distant. And then suddenly, decades later, a case resurfaces, sometimes because new technology becomes available, sometimes because someone finally decides to talk, but more often, nothing happens at all. The files stay where they are, cold, What makes these mysteries especially disturbing is how close they are to everyday life. These aren't remote legends, these are neighbors, co-workers, friends of friends, people who were part of the community, and then suddenly weren't. Some locals believe there's a psychological effect to living near so much open desert, that people underestimate it. They think it's empty, safe, predictable, but the desert doesn't forgive mistakes, and it doesn't always leave evidence behind. As one retired investigator put it, the desert doesn't create mysteries, it preserves them. By the time authorities realize something is wrong, hours, sometimes days, have already passed. And out here, time matters more than anything. Still, families refuse to let these cases fade away. They hold vigils, they share photos, they keep asking questions, because closure doesn't come from silence. It comes from truth, and that truth is still missing. In part 2, we're going deeper, into the most disturbing case connected to the Coachella Valley, a mystery with twists investigators didn't expect, a case that refuses to stay buried, and details that suggest not every disappearance here can be explained by the desert alone, because sometimes the danger isn't the landscape, it's people. As disturbing as disappearances are, there's one case tied to the Coachella Valley that investigators still describe as personally unsettling, not because of what was found, but because of what never was. It started like dozens of others, a person with a routine, a life rooted in the valley, no known enemies, no plans to leave. They were last seen on an ordinary evening. No signs of distress, no sense of urgency. They told someone they'd be back soon. That was the last confirmed sighting. At first, police treated it as a standard missing persons case. Adults are allowed to disappear. People leave. But then the timeline began to crack. Their phone activity stopped abruptly, not gradually. No final call, no dying battery, just silence. Their vehicle was later found miles away from where it should have been, parked neatly, not crashed, not abandoned in a rush. Inside were personal items that made no sense to leave behind. Keys, wallet, important documents, things people don't walk away from voluntarily. Search efforts expanded quickly. The terrain was brutal. Loose sand, rocky stretches, temperatures that dropped sharply at night. Teams searched during daylight. Then again at night. They found nothing. No tracks, no torn clothing, no indication of direction. And that's when the theories started to grow. Some believed it was a tragic accident, dehydration, disorientation, exposure. Others weren't convinced, because people lost in the desert usually leave something behind. A trail, a shoe, a mistake. This case left nothing. Then came the psychological detail that still bothers investigators. People close to the missing person reported strange behavior in the weeks before they vanished. Not panic, not fear, detachment, as if they were distracted, preoccupied, but not enough to raise alarms. Just enough to feel wrong in hindsight. No one can say for certain if it matters, but when you stack it next to everything else, it lingers. Years passed. Technology improved, cell data was reanalyzed, maps were redrawn, still nothing. And then, quietly, another witness came forward. Someone who claimed they were driving late that same night. They described seeing a figure standing near the road, not walking, not waving, just standing. By the time they processed what they were seeing, it was already behind them. Police documented the statement, but without corroboration, it went nowhere. The desert is full of illusions. Heat distortion, shadows, and memories can be unreliable. But here's what keeps this case alive. Multiple investigators, across different years, all said the same thing. This one doesn't feel accidental, not because of evidence, but because of absence. In most cases, something eventually surfaces, even years later. Bones, clothing, a forgotten item. This case produced nothing, and that's rare. The psychological weight of that uncertainty takes a toll. Families describe it as being stuck in time. No grieving, no closure, just waiting. Waiting for a phone call that never comes. Waiting for a knock at the door. And the desert doesn't help, because the desert doesn't change. It looks the same year after year. Every search feels like repeating the past. Some locals believe the valley holds on to secrets differently, that once something is gone, it stays gone. Others believe someone out there knows more than they've said, and that's the part that keeps investigators awake. Because the most dangerous mysteries aren't the ones with monsters. They're the ones involving people who blend back into everyday life. Cases like this force an uncomfortable truth. Not every mystery has an ending. Not every story is solved. Some are simply left behind. But as long as people remember these names, as long as questions are asked, the story isn't truly over. The Coachella Valley will always be known for beauty, but beneath that beauty is a quiet reminder that even in places full of light, people can disappear without a trace. If you have thoughts on this case or theories that haven't been discussed enough, leave a comment below. Conversations keep these stories alive. And if you want more deep dives into real unsolved mysteries hiding in plain sight, explore the rest of this channel. Because some stories don't want to be forgotten, they want answers.